So next we're going to hear from Associate Professor Joe McIntyre, who will speak to us about the Cambridge Australia Scholarships and what it was like to undertake a PhD at Cambridge. Joe is an Associate Professor of Law and a Research Degree Coordinator in UniSA Justice and Society, and his research focuses on judicial studies and judicial theory, with an emphasis on understanding judicial function and judicial decision-making methodology. So thank you, Joe.
So good to be able to see everybody here in the room and see all these faces. I have a very worthy presentation here that I've been given by the person who, one of my friends who was the previous presenter. She's been on the board of the Cambridge Australia Trust, and it's full of really good, worthy, useful information. Why do we study at Cambridge? And it starts off, this 800-year institution, one of the oldest in the world, all these great scholars and Nobel Prizes. You guys don't need to hear that. You know, Cambridge, oh, wow, that's amazing. We know that. What you probably think about Cambridge is, that's impossible. I know that that's some ideal over there, but that's something that doesn't really apply to me here in Adelaide. I'm just, I work hard, I try and do my thing. That idea of walking down those hallowed halls with your gown flowing behind you and sitting at high table with the picture of Henry VIII behind you, that seems actually impossible. So I don't want to talk about why and the history of it, because that's not what you need to know. What you need to know sitting in this room is that what you have in this education at this university sets you up to be able to do work and research and scholarship at the standard of anywhere in the world. You are capable of achieving and delivering absolutely, truly world-class research and scholarship. You have that foundation now. And if the right place for you to do that is somewhere like Cambridge or Harvard or McGill or anywhere in the world, go there and do that, and you deserve that place and you can achieve that thing. You will not fail because you come from Adelaide. You will walk down that hallway and deserve to be there. I'm somewhat uncomfortable with this idea, even the language of prestigious scholarships, because you shouldn't be thinking about this in terms of prestige. If you end up in somewhere like Cambridge, you're not going to succeed because it's prestigious. It's going to be very hard work, really hard work. I tell this to all of my PhD students. What's going to get you up in the middle of winter? In Cambridge, in Oxford, it's snowing, it's dank, it's miserable, there's mud on the ground. Nobody cares if you get out of bed. One of my friends went to South Africa for 3 months to watch the World Cup. Another one decided that he's going to teach himself guitar. Like, nobody cares. In that sense, what you need is motivation and a sense of prestige. That this is prestige. It's not going to get you up in the morning. What's going to get you up in the morning is the fact that you've got a project, a topic that you're deeply passionate about, something that you really love. And you've got this opportunity to walk down the street and have a coffee with a friend who's in that same program with you and have these incredible conversations. And you're going to have meetings with people. I had so many friendships that I've developed with people completely outside of my discipline, long conversations with people in the seminary training to be priests, discussing deep issues of law and theology and the role of Christian theology and the evolution of legal principles. And wow, it's just enlightening and engaging and exciting. But you're supported and expected to do this work. This is the reason you go to these places. It's not because of the prestige. It's because, think of it like sunlight shining down on a flower. It's an opportunity to open up and to grow into all you can be. And that's what it should be doing. we've just heard from Steph. I said, I've written down here the scary success of Steph. Like everything she's saying is the scary success of Steph. But the one thing that really resonated for me was she said, everything becomes achievable. And I know in that context, she's talking about having done these experiences. Suddenly, the world seems so much smaller. And the world does seem tiny after you've done these things. So I've gone to Cambridge in 2008. So I did my law degree up in Flinders. And I was sitting there, I was working at the Crown Solicitor's office, and my then fiance, now wife, was like, go, apply. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm like, go. And she kicks me into it. And it took me 2 years to get my act together and to get the scholarship and make it happen. At that point, it did feel impossible. Afterwards, Juliet came over with me. She was working in as the Supreme Chief Justice's associate. She gave up her position there, came over, and the GFC hit. The economy collapsed in England. She spent her first 12 months in Cambridge. I'm struggling through my PhD. She's ended up working in a shoe shop selling shoes. 12 months later, she applied to do some research or associate work, some research work for a law professor, ex-Adelaide Prof. James Crawford, that grew in a short period of time. Within 12 months, she was appearing in the International Court of Justice with him and traveling the world doing international litigation. We returned to Australia in 2013. I had some great friends. I was like, why don't you come over to Canada for a year? I'm like, yeah, all right. So we went and taught in a Canadian university for a year. And we thought, well, let's come back to Adelaide. And we came back via Darwin of all places and eventually returned back to Adelaide. And what we really noticed is that when we left, Adelaide felt a long way from everywhere in the world. When we came back, we realized that Adelaide is a privileged, lucky place to be a base to do whatever you want in the world. The world feels tiny. So my wife, Juliet, is now regularly writing and researching with scholars all over the world. I've got, we don't think anything. She's like, oh, I've got another Zoom at 5 o'clock. I have to get up at 1 o'clock because I'm presenting to New York. Like that just becomes part of it because you've got these friends and these connections. So everything does become achievable because you realize it was always achievable. The block was me. The block was a feeling that I was isolated here. And that's what I want to convey to you right now. From where you are right today, everything is achievable. There is literally no place in the world you can't go and thrive. So I remember so clearly walking down West Road in Cambridge down to the law faculty about 2 months in, going off to a seminar, going, today's going to be the day. Today will be the day that they tell me that there's been a mistake and it's time for me to go home. And that was really how I was feeling. What you start to realize is that everybody feels like that. Academia, we all still feel like that, unfortunately. I think that seems to be part of our entire mindset. But don't let those feelings stop you from having a chance. Because the things that really are special in a place like Cambridge are those opportunities to meet people from around the world. Over half of the students, are graduate students or international students at Cambridge. So you'll be sitting in that room surrounded by people from all over the world, and you'll build up amazing relationships with them. You'll be in a college environment where dinner time is you go into the hall and you're sitting down with people from psychology, from pharmacy, from history, and you'll have these most incredible experiences. My last year, I was a research fellow, a teaching fellow, and you'd be sitting at high table, and I'd walk in on a Friday afternoon, let's go down to high table for lunch. And they bring out the fish, and you go and get your fish and chips, and someone says, hey, do you want a beer? I says, yeah. Calls over, and someone comes out with a tankard full of beer, and we're sitting on high table having fish and chips with a tankard of beer under the portrait of Henry VIII, and having these incredible experiences and conversations. And what's really healthy about this is you realize your topic's interesting, but the gods of your discipline are completely unknown to the next discipline. And it gives you a really healthy perspective about where you can go with these things. Why do I actually recommend Cambridge? And I said, look, these are all of the formal classic reasons up here. That's not why I think it's had the impact on my life. Like, all of that's a privilege. I loved it. It was incredible. I got to write my PhD, dangling my toes into the river Cam, sitting underneath a weeping willow tree as the punts go down the road. It was the greatest privilege, absolutely. I'm not dismissing any of that. But the real impact for me was because you were in a place that just takes excellence for granted. And it just supports and encourages that in a way that you don't even realize. It seeps into your bones. The reality is my thesis would not have been possible in Australia. I came there with the idea of wanting to look at how international law might impact on the development of court systems, and seeing maybe I can use international law as a lens to distill these ideas of what is the role of a court. And if we can understand that basic idea of, we can all sort of agree this is what a court should be doing, then when Australia or another country goes in and helps another nation develop their courts, we can all share that. And I was seeing what was happening with Australia and East Timor at the time, the early days of the ICC. Oh, this would be a great way to work out what a court is. My fabulous then supervisor said, hate to break it to you, international law has no idea what it's doing, and it's just making it up as it goes along. So then he says, why don't you go and speak to, this comparativeness and theorist over here? So 3 months in, I completely changed supervisor. And I said, this is sort of what I'm trying to do. I sort of want to explore, and this is the idea. I sat down, I wrote out, and I put all my ideas on. So cool. All right, let's do it, see how we go. What ended up coming out of that was I wrote a thesis on the nature of the judicial function. Anybody in law would go, oh yeah, which part? Oh, all of it? So I wrote first chapter, what is the role of courts? Second chapter, what is the fundamental nature of the judicial process, judicial methodology, informed by that core function? Third chapter, impartiality and bias. How do we recognize deviations from method? Fourth chapter, accountability. How do we ensure that judges can conform to that method and aspire to that role? So my thesis was that we could better understand the totality of the course by looking at the structure and the relationships between those big ideas. Somehow it worked. And I mean that somehow it worked. I don't know how I managed to pull all those threads together. But the reality is there's no way that would have been possible in Australia, because my supervisor would have rightly said, that's stupid. That is way too ambitious. Let's just take one part of that. And that would have been a good thesis. But a decade later, I'm still unpacking my ideas. I've still got a decade's work in looking at the implications. And this is what I talk about in research now, the implications of those ideas. Cambridge was a place where they're like, here's a huge amount of rope, go. If you hang yourself, you hang yourself. Jump in the deep end, swim. Of course you'll be fine. Of course you'll be fine. Everyone's doing this. And somehow you are. So for me, that's the big takeaway of taking all of these opportunities are a chance for you to go out and try something impossible, because why not? what I will say is that, you know, in the formal part of things, Cambridge Australia scholarships are what I'm here to talk about. They are different to these other processes. You apply, they will provide the basic amounts, your composition, your fees, all of those eligibilities, all there. I've got a flyer at the back. Pick that up on the way out. That's got all those details. The different things for Cambridge Australia and for many of the Cambridge scholarships is that you don't do a separate application. So you apply for admission at the university through their portal. If they, when you apply for that, you'll tick a little box saying, I want to be eligible for funding. And you complete a few sections of that. The university then looks at your admission. If you get admission from the university, then you go into a separate process where you will get a college admission. And when you apply through the university, you will be nominating your preferred college. When they go through, they will consider which scholarships you're eligible for. So you'll find out, as I did, oh, you've been accepted into Cambridge, oh, God, and you're into Girton College. I don't know, good, I don't know. But then they set out, you know, what scholarships you have. I was going to make some quips about contrasting this with, you know, Rhodes and Monash, but, you know, obviously I can't do that in present company. But yeah. The advantage of this is that we are looking at purely on your academic record and potential. So your admission is not just your grades, it's what is the project? Is this something that's really exciting and novel? Is there a good idea that we want to support? We don't care about how well you can kick a football. We don't care about what opportunities you've had in community building, because a lot of that is actually about embedded privilege. You know, we're living in a high inflation environment. Just surviving is all that a lot of people can do. So there are equity benefits in just looking at what your project is and where you're going. And that is the focus of these Cambridge scholarships. We are looking at what you can achieve with this scholarship. So we don't need to have all of those interviews and materials like that. Imposter syndrome, we've definitely talked about that. There are other ways of getting into Cambridge as well, other forms of scholarships, GATE scholarships, Indigenous Charlie Perkins scholarships, Roberta Sykes scholarships. As I say, there's a bifurcation between admission and then funding. And once you get admission, there are colleges that will have sources of funding. There are little bits and bobs and pots and different ways of getting there. I'll leave that quote up to read. What I will say, and this is the take home I want for you. Going to somewhere like Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, it's possible. It's possible from where you sit now. Indeed, you are well positioned and you will do well. If you are thinking about this, speak to people. These are Byzantine and crazy complex systems. What is a college? How do I do that? Come and speak to some of us. We'll sit down and have coffee and have a talk about explaining. Be willing to try again. There's no one path. I'm hearing all these wonderful scholarships up here. Great opportunities, which I didn't get. You know, I would have loved to have got these things. I didn't get them. I landed in Cambridge with enough funding I got a Cambridge scholarship to cover my tuition, a law foundation for the first year, and a whole lot of good intentions. Somehow we cobbled together with college scholarships and different law foundations, different law reviews, a whole bunch of scholarships that got me there. My whole degree ended up being funded, but it wasn't traditional. It kept me hungry because I kept on having to find new ways of funding myself. But we got there. There's no one path. And succeeding through a prestigious scholarship is not the only way of being successful in your career. So these, as we're hearing, these are wonderful, but they are about supporting wonderful people. And you'll be wonderful no matter which path you go along that way. Thank you.